So this lecture is going to be pretty short, but it's kind of key because it really gives the background behind, Manifest Destiny and how it is that America expands and how it justifies itself from expanding. And this is really unique to American history. And I'm also going to introduce a term called American exceptionalism, which really comes a lot from Manifest Destiny. Okay. So a lot of what we're going to talk about too is going to come in the coming weeks, but to give you just a perspective on it, this gives you like a timeline kind of a Manifest Destiny along with a map. And you can see that post-American Revolution, this territory that was under the Proclamation line of 1763 now becomes part of the United States. And this line right here is the Mississippi River. Louisiana Purchase, of course, in 1803. And later on that we'll get to, we'll talk about the Texas annexation, the Mexican cession with the Mexican-American War, around that same time, the Oregon Treaty. And then some other treaties too to kind of measure out like where the border lines were. But this idea that America was essentially destined to go across the ocean, even though John O'Sullivan is actually credited for using that word in a newspaper article justifying the Mexican-American War, the idea of it really comes before that time period. This is a map from a man, just a second, went a little too far there, from a man named John Mellish. And this was, this British and Spanish possessions from 1816, as it says. But as you can tell from looking at the map, this area was really the only one that we had fully settled. Although we had the Louisiana Purchase, territory over here, this area was, not fully excavated and didn't have a lot of people on it quite yet. This area, interestingly enough, was all Mexican area. Okay, so this area, well, actually, I guess Spanish area because the Mexican Revolution happens in 1821. So it goes from Spanish to Mexican territory after 1821. But take a look at Mellish's comments about this map and about what he envisioned. And this is, again, way before the Mexican-American War. So here's what Mellish says. To present the country this way was desirable. This is on why he makes this map. The map shows at a glance the whole extent of the United States territory from sea to sea. In tracing the probable expansion of the human race from east to west, the mind finds an agreeable resting place on its western limits. The view is complete and leaves nothing to be wished for. It also adds to the beauty and symmetry of the map. Okay, so if we go again, look back at this map, you can see again that this really, up to about that area is where the United States technically had the land and had claims to it. These other claims were Spanish/Mexican claims. So that should tell you that the mindset of American expansion was already in the minds of Americans by this point. Okay, and kind of giving you an idea, this is like a contemporary map that shows you where we actually had official territories and who were the states at that time period when Mellish had made that map. And so, again, this territory was not ours, but people envisioned that it would eventually become ours. Okay, of course, this picture is extremely famous, and hopefully you guys have seen this or remember this maybe from your high school and middle school days, even elementary, right? This is John Nast's American Progress image in 1872. Now, this is long after the Mexican-American War and even post-Civil War. But this really shows you how the American experience was glamorized and, the justifications. If you take a really close look at this map or this drawing, which is important in American history, it shows you the progress it made. This image here is Columbia, which was a frequent representation of the United States. Often in paintings, women were depicted as the countries were depicted in like female form, and she's carrying the Bible, and she's also carrying telegraph lines that were normally put along railroad areas also. You can see the growth of, the West. You can see the trails and people moving forward. And notice by the way, the name is American Progress, okay? Also notice intentionally that the artist made the right side light, so the light is coming into the darkness. And of course, look at who is in the darkness, but Native Americans seen as, more savage, and so progress is being brought forward and bringing light into the West. So this is extremely intentional type of thinking that went through this. Okay, and this is the actual map in 1872. So we had actually by that time already settled from coast to coast. John O'Sullivan comes up with this quote of Manifest Destiny in an article around the time of the Mexican-American War. And this is what it says. Our national birth and the Declaration of Independence was the beginning of a new history, which separates us from the past and connects us only with the future. We are the nation of progress, of individual freedom, of universal enfranchisement. Our future history will be to establish on earth the moral dignity and salvation of man, the undeniable truth and goodness of God. America has been chosen for this mission among all the nations of the world, which are shut out from the life-giving light of truth. Her high example shall be put an end to the tyranny of kings and carry the happy news of peace and good will to millions who now endure an existence of hardly better than that of beasts of the field. Who then can doubt our country is destined to be the great nation of the future? And so, Polk at the time uses this quote to really garner support in this whole idea that American history, the history of America is so unique and so special, and we are destined and destined by God to settle to the West. So that's it. It's pretty short this week. I really just want you to think about this idea of manifest destiny and the idea of American exceptionalism. And, this is really the root of it, so it kind of will give us a better understanding of the other events that will happen with Jackson and also with, of course, the Mexican-American War and the coming of the Civil War, which will happen soon. Have a great day.